the human normal voice, is the baritone voice.
So as you might know, if you've ever done a video exposing Ken Tampling or something even remotely similar to like that, this very second you say something negative about Ken Tampling, he will send his army of trolls, or maybe it's just him, you know, was approved on that video everyone wants to forget, and he will begin to say the most violent things. But at times, other than sending threats, they will start testing if they can break your psyche, you know, just like testing for vulnerabilities. It's actually quite bizarre. This last couple of weeks were actually weirdly weird for me. But of course he is powerless and it's over, and that's good.
It's over.
But the most interesting one, I mean, it's like the only one that I want to talk about, is that, you know, he was telling me, you're a tenor, so that sort of invalidates me in this case as a teacher, because I'm teaching to sing high, but I can do it naturally, and I can prove why that is actually just a projection. Well, I can't prove it's a projection. I'm pretty sure it's a projection, but I can prove it's ignorant. If anyone's watched my free course, which you should watch because it's not gonna be free forever, then you know for a fact that the technique I'm teaching, or the high notes, like the high notes that I'm singing, like say this one, they are arising from the laryngeal mechanism that occurs after your voice cracks. So say I humor this argument and I'm like, yeah, you're right, I'm a tenor, oh, sorry about that, right? Sure. So what he's trying to say by that is you have a naturally higher voice, so what you're teaching is less valid, and to that I'm saying, I'm not using my naturally higher voice anyway, I'm letting it crack and I'm using what appears after the crack. And since laryngeal mechanisms were found by science not to be mixed, like it's impossible to mix laryngeal mechanisms, of course, then even if I am a tenor, what I'm teaching isn't really affected by that. In a lot of cases, the internet has confused being a baritone with sort of an excuse to have bad technique. Ken's situation actually doesn't surprise me, because when you're pushing your instrument past its natural limitations, you actually cannot expect it to be consistent in live instances, for example. But see, this is not common in opera, and what I teach is actually classical technique. It's not reinventing the wheel in a sense. It might seem like reinventing the wheel, it might seem revolutionary, but that's only from the point of view how much YouTube has messed it all up, you know? In opera, it doesn't really matter if you have a genetic gift of being able to push your voice higher while remaining in your M1 laryngeal mechanism, usually called chest voice.
And the tenor is artificial voice.
Because you have to be severely smart about it and realize that if something is even an inch outside of your natural range, then those notes might cost you or give you problems in a live performance, and you don't want that to happen in opera. 100% consistency is expected, which is why my technique is so consistent, because you're using the limits of your own voice to your own favor and not pushing against them. So whether you are a baritone or a tenor, which was never anyway about the limits of your M1, but I'm humoring the internet and its weird definition of it, whether you are it or not, you're not going to be using that for this type of high notes, if you want to be consistent live, that is. It's not your predetermined God-given range, it's the one that appears after that one ends. And scientifically speaking, anyone, even if they're a bass, baritone, or tenor, can add a lot of air to their M2 and make it sound chesty. The true difference will show once you've constructed or built from scratch the new part of your range, which I can teach you to do, that your timbre will differ. A tenor's mixed voice, again, a very funny and silly and really bad word from the internet, and its timbre will be different from a baritone's mixed voice and its timbre. So it was always about the timbre of the voice and not actually the limits. I think I sound like Axl Rose. Welcome to the jungle, watch it bring it to ya. Or even a little like Chris Cornell, and everyone says they are baritones. But I only respect the discussion if it's, you know, talking about timbre and not the limits of pushing your voice. That's just funny at this point. But I mean, I was here since the beginning of time on YouTube, and they sure made a whole mess inside my head with these things, but whatever. I really couldn't care less whether I'm a baritone or a tenor, because it's irrelevant, and whether people perceive me as a baritone or a tenor, because I guess that's even more irrelevant. The idea is to discover your voice in a sense and just let it show you, I guess, what it can do and what it can sound like, and it will sound like yourself, you know? not to get too cheesy, but it's the truth, okay? It will sound like yourself. It won't sound like tenor or baritone, or even Axel or Chris. I only mention that to, make a point for these classifications having to do with timbre. That's why in opera there's a role called dramatic tenor, for example. And it's pointing towards like a tonal quality of the voice that reminds you of like dramatic, heroic tenor, that type of thing. So in that sense, I use the Chris Cornell Axl Rose example to point in that direction, that always should have been the real definition of, baritone, tenor, or whatever. So because I appreciate you watching to the end, if you mention this part of the video, just say, baritone to me, or like tenor, fake baritone. Just say something funny like that to me on an email. Get my second bundle, and if you don't see results within the first week, I'll refund you for the full price. I built my M2 from scratch with no help from anywhere, and I put all of that into a method, and I even figured out why it works, and I can explain it to you. It's using your own songs, so it's really motivating, and it's just, most importantly, effective as hell.